Hi, and welcome to InFocus. This is Jabbar Al-Obaidi. In the midst of the pandemic, coronavirus, and public health crisis in the United States, we are now facing a new, old challenge that is related to racism in this country and the Black Lives Matter movement. People in the US and, in fact, across the world globally started to talk about this issue of systematic racism. With me, Teresa Cruz Foley and Jill Sheridan. They both came up to this and they accepted the challenge in a goodwill with open minds. So they call for stand up for justice. And I will start with Teresa. Teresa, thank you so much. And Jill, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I know on June 13 this year, 2020, you participated and you organized actually the Stand Up for Justice in Bridgewater Common. You know, Bridgewater town is a really small town, but when you have this kind of activities, then you feel, you know, everybody proud of the town. So what exactly was in your mind and is on your mind when you called for the stand-up?
Well, first, I just wanted to say that the stand-up was actually Jen's idea, who isn't here right now. And Jill and I just kind of jumped on the opportunity to help administrate and organize and get the word out. And I believe our first one was June 6th, but we have done 4 in a row now. So I guess I'll speak for me. The murder of George Floyd, for some reason, for me, and it seems like for many people across the country, was different than all the previous murders of Black men and women by police. It just awakened something in me, and to the point where I could not do nothing anymore. I had to take action. So, and gratefully, I couldn't have done it by myself, and I probably wouldn't have had the nerve to organize something like this. But thankfully, Jen has plenty of nerve for that, and Jill and I worked together, and after the first one, we just wanted to continue because it's such, at those stand-ups, I feel aligned with a higher good in a way that I don't feel elsewhere. So I really feel like something big is happening. And also, I just want to say that we feel, the people who are standing up, we feel like we don't share like the same values as maybe the larger population in Bridgewater, which makes it like even more important. Because if we're feeling like a minority, or, you know, a group of people that the general population doesn't get, how much more so our neighbors and our community members with darker skin feel. So, go ahead, Jill.
Yeah. Yeah, so the Stand Up for Justice movement did, you know, Jen was actually the driver that got us there. BCCR was doing some demonstrating, but it was more just a really small group. And we really wanted to build on that. We could sense the momentum in the movement itself. And know that there are people of color and marginalized populations in our own town who don't feel comfortable or welcome here. And we need to change that. So we don't change that just by talking with like-minded people, we changed that by going out into the community and inviting people in to really understand, because, I'll be the first to admit that I didn't always get it. The whole idea of white privilege didn't resonate with me when I was younger. If you come from a home that's dysfunctional and you're impoverished and you have your own struggles, you don't feel privileged. So it took me a long time to understand what white privilege was really about. And once I got it, it was the sort of thing where it was just a light bulb went off. And I do feel the need to spread that message. And this is our way of taking action to support the people in our town and in our community who are struggling for whatever reason, whether it's because they're a marginalized population, whether they're people of color, our LGBTQ community, who traditionally haven't been supported in our town and haven't been made to feel welcome.
So the issue of racism is not new, and this is it is not really white and black and brown or whatever color. Racism is racism. So what the very word racism means to you?
To me, I'll take racism. I think is more than just. I think it's almost like a disease. It's not as if like calling a person a racist, I think invokes a really defensive reaction in them, because none of us want to consider ourselves a racist. I think to acknowledge systemic racism in all of our institutions is a better focused way to look at it, because I think all of our institutions, from schools to healthcare, hugely, we already talked about that, are inherently racist, despite well-intentioned, good-hearted people being at work in those institutions. So it's almost in the air that we breathe.
I agree. And I wanted to say too, something that I'm learning and continuing to learn as I look deeper, is that the justice system in our country originated by getting a group of white men together to capture runaway slaves. So it's always been about color. And even now, like the school to prison pipeline, these systemic things that we're given these beliefs. We don't even know what's going on. And I feel like we are all victims of racism. Even the people who believe that it is their right and duty to perpetuate the oppression of other people, they suffer too, from racism.
It hurts the entire community, our white kids, our black kids, our brown kids. It hurts everybody.
Because we're missing opportunities.
It permeates every aspect of our community.
One of the signs says, use white privilege for justice. Well, could you elaborate on this?
Maybe this would be a good time for me to read our mission statement in progress, because we do address that. Would that be a good place to start?
It's a good place to start. But I want to connect it to this sign, because it was, it was there, and also was published by the Enterprise as well. Yeah. So go ahead.
The mission statement does address that.
Okay.
Yeah, it says. The sign says Bridgewater. It's not Bridgewater. Use white privilege for justice. It's really a big statement. Yeah, go ahead. See your vision and the statement, please.
Okay. So this is our mission and statement in progress. Our mission is to actively demonstrate support for our marginalized and diverse populations by responding to issues that affect their safety and well-being. We recognize and use our privilege as our opportunity to stand with and amplify marginalized and diverse voices in our community. We commit to educating ourselves and participating in town affairs as a presence in Bridgewater, and we commit to doing better as we know better. So we we understand, and we understand that our privilege is a responsibility. We need to put ourselves, our bodies and our voices in between the aggressors and the people that they are aggressing against. In this case, and in many cases, it's people with light skin against people with darker skin.
Now, how the reception,
What's the reception?
the response from the community?
Oh gosh, that's been all over the place. I think it's the positive. I'll start with that, is that a lot of people have reached out, not really knowing how to help, but wanting to help. So using their voice to come out and support, to make signs, to have conversations. You know, we started a 21-day challenge to educate ourselves and each other about systemic racism within another I don't call it a subgroup, but another group in town, DICE, which is Diversity and Inclusion for Community Empowerment. So, you know, we associate with them as well because we have similar missions. But we aim to be more of the action group with that, to be very visible in the community, to reach out, to get speakers, to really try to spread the message.
But to answer your question, though, it's been mixed. Our largest week, we had 300 people come to the stand-up. And we generally have about like 150, 100 people, but there are, like, when we do post on Facebook, and Jen's had more experience with this than I have, and I think probably Jill has too, but there have been people who are like, this is not appropriate for our group, or like put the little like laughter sign, like it's funny.
A little bit of mocking.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely feel that we are, we don't share values with the larger population of Bridgewater, but at least we're giving people an opportunity who are like, yeah, I know that there's a problem, but I don't know what to do about it. We're giving people an opportunity to physically do something about it.
Yeah.
Oh,
and thank you for highlighting that there are a lot of people who are not supporting, and some people are very vocal, not supporting. And very much in denial that there is any problem at all.
But I did want to say, sorry, this is, for me, this is the most important thing. The most important reason we do this is that the first week that we did it, I think we all kind of received messages from our neighbors and community members of color, like private messages saying, thank you so much. And I think I sent you a video clip of Cleone Mainville when she drove around at the first one. Her son said, Mama, look at all the people who care, because really they didn't feel cared about. They didn't feel seen, and they didn't feel like their issues were our issues. So to me, that's the response that matters.
Yeah,
but because that's the group that we're trying to support.
So what do you mean when you say, you know, there are people are not sharing, or they don't share your values and your attitudes and your, you know, the way you care about that? Well, could you elaborate on this a little bit, please?
I think the majority of the population in Bridgewater doesn't feel like racism is a problem. They don't feel that people of color have different opportunities, or they don't acknowledge their privilege. Sorry, what, Jill?
They don't have the same opportunities and experiences as just white people in the town.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people are blind to it.
Yes, a lot of people are blind to it, and a lot of people just feel like it's not their problem. And I'm going to admit, for a long time, I knew there was a problem, but I didn't think there's anything meaningful that I could do about it. So it feels really good right now to be doing something about it.
When did you come to realize, this is the question for both of you, that there is, and there was, or it has been, racism, it has been a problem within the town?
Within the town. I moved here in 2012. My son is Black, and I don't want to share his experience because that's his story to tell. He's 21 years old now. But it was pretty evident right away that there were problems. We had neighbors who are, avid Trump supporters who let me know that it's okay that I have a Black child in a very sort of condescending way. And, nobody asks for their child to be legitimized by anybody else. So just the fact that somebody would say, it didn't feel good. It felt very exclusive. And, him being Black was probably one of only 3 Black kids who graduated in his class. And he definitely has had experiences with police and in school. And no arrest, he had no criminal activity. I mean, he's very successful and he graduated in the top 10 of his class. But there's definitely noted differences in experiences.
Must be a proud mom. I know that.
I am.
Do you have any association with the Bridgewater Citizen for Civility and Respect?
No, we're not associated with them. We kind of shared the space and, when we were protesting, but we aren't affiliated with them. And our mission is much more like direct action, and sometimes the words civility and respect, they address overt racism, but what really is much more pervasive in our town is covert racism. And keeping things civilized and respectful often doesn't address the real issues that need kind of more open dialogue.
The language of civility and respect in general can be inherently racist, we feel.
That's how?
So, Teresa, do you want to talk about the word civility? Because that was something that came up.
Well, how? Keeping things civilized hasn't worked. Keeping things civilized doesn't get it, and it's not that we are, I'm not against being civilized or respectful. I'm just saying sometimes those words can be used to quiet the voices of the people that we need to hear from. It's not active listening. It's tone policing. Yeah.
It's tone policing.
It's saying, maybe if you said it a little bit more respectfully, people would get it. It doesn't work.
So I'm reading a book by Stephen Brookfield, and he kind of touches on these ideas that you just shared in the discussion, but he and his associates, because of other contributors, other writers, they talk about the fact that we need to approach it in kind of a scaffolding way. Then you put people to this discussion, because we need to train ourselves to move from an uncomfortable kind of position to a comfortable position to uncomfortable position,
Yes.
to challenge ourselves and to accept discussing this issue. And one of the things that I think what Jill mentioned, it's really, we call it, or they call it modeling, because storytelling is very important to make people be interested, and then also draw them to the discussion. And what you're doing is, and it was mentioned in his book, the community building. So community building is a new creative approach, and I would like both of you to talk about the community building in terms of educating the people and make them, feel okay to talk about racism and to start re-examining the self.
So one of the places I think we start is in our schools, because there have been several incidents reported where there's racism and discrimination against certain groups that haven't been effectively dealt with. And the people reporting them have also been told that, they're isolated incidents. It's not related to race, and just very kind of like swept under the rug, where I think we'd like to see, and we've advocated for, a procedure for reporting incidents like that. So if A happens, B happens, and we think that restorative justice should be part of that. So within other groups that we're working with, and this I think we stand for as well, is reporting those incidents accurately and holding the school district accountable. Because if we can't solve it in our schools, then that's really a microcosm of the rest of the town. And I think we have to start right there with anti-bias education. And we've called for it. We've met with the school committee administration, and they have acknowledged the problem and pledged to implement some kind of anti-defamation, anti-bias education.
Now, Jill, there is a call, throughout the country, about the subject of defunding the police. What's your understanding to this call?
Hi, I'm back.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. So we're
We were
talking about
talking-
defunding the police. What's your interpretation to this, or understanding, I would say, to this?
I just wanted to, there was something that I wanted to speak about, and forgive me, I'm just going to go back to what we were talking about before and what we're doing in the community. And I just want to say that we are seeking out Black speakers, and we want them to express themselves freely and not be confined to the rules of civility and respect. We want people to express, we want to know what their experience is. We want to be active listening, and we want to compensate them for the emotional work that goes into educating white people on the Black experience. So that's one way that we're community building. And when we do, we also seek white speakers, because we have Black community members in the town that have asked for white speakers to come up and publicly share their solidarity, publicly declare that they are anti-racism. And so those are ways that I feel are effectively building community.
Yes, modeling is important, because you do racial disclosure, and yeah, it is really healthy, as you said, both of you mentioned that, is to start within self and then say, okay, let's re-examine my own biases and then the understanding. That's really very, very important. So what are the next steps for you?
Next step to stand up for justice. Well,
we're just
right now we're in infancy in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
We've really just started as three moms who were just sick of this, sick of the racism, sick of the ignorance and apathy. And so we don't really necessarily, we're really just a few weeks old. I think for myself, I would like to see us continue to be a physical presence and take up space on the town common, just to show people we're here. This isn't like, a flash in the pan and the work is done and check that box off. We're going to keep showing up and keep working with other community groups to build awareness and to educate ourselves and educate other people.
Yeah, I think educating ourselves is definitely going to be always the next step. And some of the things that we're just like working on getting right now, getting Black speakers to come to our stand-ups and speak and share their experience, because that has been a very powerful, I feel like it's caused an awakening in a lot of people that come, myself included.
Yeah, so community building, and you know, a lot of studies revealed now that somehow the country, as I mentioned, even on global scale, acknowledgement has happened. So the majority, they will tell you, we acknowledge there is a problem. So this is a good step, because people acknowledge that. The
Yeah, we
second
do
thing
want to make sure acknowledging it doesn't become a performative action, and
no,
really
that's
hold each
yes,
other accountable for that.
Then it's engagement. We need this engagement, which is what you're doing. Is engagement is very, very important. And you know, today the Boston Globe put an article, I saw it online, saying that actually majority in Massachusetts saying, you know, racism is systematic, and we need to talk about it, and we need to come up with an actionable plan. So in your view, what's the best actionable plan? Just, I mean, this is kind of a brainstorming kind of a question. What do you think is the best way to, you know, in addition to education, to get the people involved with this, and they say, yeah, you know what, we not just respect, but actually we act to dismantle the mental attitude or whatever layers of misunderstanding, then to see the brighter picture that we are people?
Well, I know for me personally, and the plan is, I have set a plan to read a book about racial injustice, one a month. I have started and plan to continue donating regularly towards racial injustice, both in direct funding and for organizations like the Innocence Project. I love them. To hold each other accountable, to continue to stand up, to continue to do that work of standing up. We are also present in when the Diversity and Inclusion for Community Empowerment group has open forums. We are present in there. We are going to continue to, you know, attend school committee meetings. Jen and I are on the Cultural Council in Bridgewater, so just to kind of be a presence. But I think the most important thing, simple but not easy, is just to commit to doing micro activisms every time you are in the presence of a microaggression. Somebody saying something like, I'm so over Black Lives Matter, or, you know, I was poor too, I don't have privilege, anything like that. And it takes a lot of mental and emotional work, but just to commit to standing up in small ways throughout your day, wherever you are and whoever you're with. And sometimes that is, that's the most important work, I think.
You're nodding your head.
I'm nodding my head, yes.
Yeah.
All the things she said. I mean, I agree with all of that. As far as the action steps go too, beyond education, I'm not entirely sure what that's going to look like. I'm an educator myself. I teach in a neighboring district, and I am one of the teachers that teaches anti-bias education. There's 4 of us in the school. So for me, the education piece is huge, and having conversations with the kids about that, my own kids in my community and my students. And really taking the lead from other groups in our state and beyond who are seeking to make changes in our institutions. Because I think our institutions do have to be ground zero for change, beyond the individual level and beyond us, like our book clubs and our discussions within families and friends. You know, I think it has to be an institutional change.
You know, one of the signs also brought probably a lot of attention is it says jogging while black is not a death sentence. Could you speak to that?
Jogging while black is not a death sentence.
Yes.
Are we talking about
The sign,
jogger?
the signature there was a sign held by your participant.
I think it's saying that you know, if you
It's actually a reference, I believe, is a reference to Ahmaud Arbery.
Arbery, yeah.
In Arbery in Georgia. But could you speak to that? That's a powerful.
It is powerful because I think it illustrates that things that, you know, if I was doing as a middle-aged white woman would be no threat to my personal safety. So it's a really powerful statement that illustrates that if you're doing something while black, that it's going to be a different experience altogether. And as the mom of a black runner, that really hits me. And that just illustrates the point of the differences in experience between people of color and white people. So yeah, it's not a death sentence, except that it was.
And 30 seconds for each. Any closing statement?
We're just, yeah, we're just starting out. We're just babies. We don't have all the answers right now, but we're just committed to learning as we go. And as we learn better, we're going to do better.
I agree. And that we are open to ideas from community members. And right now, like, I kind of do want to go beyond the education piece. My activism is a little bit newer, and I do want to take advice and take the lead of community members. We're open to ideas. You know, come to the table. There's room. There's so much work to be done, and it's overwhelming for just small groups of people. So I'm open to everything and anything.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Jeff, for this fascinating.
Thank you, Jabbar.
Thank you for this fascinating conversation. Thank you for participating in InFocus, and thank you for watching InFocus.